Because we've got a little bit of time before we get started, everyone that's chimed in already, make sure as we go through to hit the chat in the comments with any questions that you have. We really want to make this session as interactive and hopefully fun as possible. So ask your questions. Lisa is very experienced, and I can direct questions to her. So feel free to come through with those comments.
Just chime in, Luke, if you see a question come up and I need to sort of stop to answer that, then let me know as well, right? So I'll trust you to keep an eye on that.
Absolutely. Okay, so I think we should kick off. We'll allow others to join as we go along, but very great to be here today. My name is Luke Rowan. I'm part of the EdApp Solutions team, and today we've got a great webinar where we're joined with Lisa. How are you, Lisa?
Good morning, I'm well. Greetings from Sydney, just waking up as you guys are getting to the end of your day.
There you go. We've covered the globe with this particular webinar. Lisa's from Wheelhouse Consulting, and Wheelhouse have a great depth of experience in delivering blended learning solutions, predominantly to consumer packaged goods brands. I believe that's the case, is it not, Lisa?
Yeah, a little bit into consumer electronics, but largely CPG, yeah.
Excellent, excellent. And today we're going to really leverage your experience to talk about blended learning solutions and I guess what you've seen in terms of the transition, from more traditional training solutions to now a really blended learning approach and leveraging mobile solutions like EdApp to deliver that best-in-class solution. So if you could just maybe while we're on this screen, just give us a bit of background as to, I guess, the mission of what you guys do at Wheelhouse and some experience.
Sure, yeah. So thanks for that introduction, Luke. So really what we focus on and what I'm passionate about is connections and connecting for growth. So that and when it comes to training and capability development, that's about connecting people within a team, understanding what the skill sets are, what we need to know, what we don't know, and how we can leverage that to move forward. So really connecting for growth is what we're all about, and a positive impact. And for me, you can have the best strategy in the world and the best activation plan in the world, but if you don't have a team of people who are skilled and knowledgeable and energized, then it's not going to deliver the success that you're looking for. So training and capability is a really, really big part of what we do and something I'm passionate about.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So let's hop into it. Before we actually talk about today's topic, I did want to revisit a few key facets of what EdApp is all about. If we've got anyone new to the platform, really, I would just want to spend a couple of minutes just talking about what EdApp is, and that will then frame up the conversation in a second. So let's just run down the top 10 reasons why EdApp is different from other solutions. Number one, EdApp is both a cloud-based authoring tool and a mobile-first delivery platform. So when it comes to delivering content, EdApp is really about using the data of our community on a macro level to help you author content. Our approach to authoring is template-based. And from there you can select the appropriate template, and I guess the design of those templates has really been shaped by feedback from our community and the data that we see from over 50,000 lessons being completed on a daily basis. Number two there, we have an editable content library. So yes, we have the ability to author custom content and give you that ability, but we also have a library of material that is free for you to use and reshape at your own discretion. Number three there, obviously mobile first is very much about what we're about. So, the advantages of mobile for the learner nowadays really couldn't be questioned. And we certainly hear back from our customers that it really is the preferred place to learn in today's kind of modern age of learning. Built-in gamification and real rewards. So we really aim to gamify every kind of opportunity to deliver training in the platform, whether that be within the micro lessons themselves or whether we leverage features like leaderboards and pricing is another really novel feature. So there's just throughout the platform, you'll see opportunities to take that kind of traditional static learning and make it fun and exciting for your audience. Number 5 there, we have a translation feature that really is very simple. It leverages a Google machine learning API from Google to be able to convert any of your content from English to over 100 different languages. And that obviously delivers some cost savings and kind of expedites production. Excuse me 1 second, I'm just going to get rid of something so I can see my screen. Actionable reports, number 6 there. So actionable reports is part of our analytics suite, and this gives you the ability to really zero in learners that have either performed poorly or performed well and issue notifications to them to follow them up with that friendly little nudge to get them moving in their program. Number 7, Brain Boost is an AI-driven feature that will create a daily quiz for the learner based upon the content that they've engaged with in the past. And really the aim of this feature is to create a dynamic quiz for the learner to reiterate the information that they need to brush up on. Number 8 there, offline mode, very simple. It's just a feature of the app side learner experience where you can download content to your device. So if you have a commute on a train to work where you lose connectivity, or you're an executive and you're flying all over the world and you want to download content, or if you're deep in a mine and you want to engage with some training, offline mode can be powerful. Notifications, I touched on this a second ago with actionable reports, but we also have another branch of notifications where a learner will be automatically sent alerts for any new content that is made available. So that's obviously very powerful. And then number 10 there, social and peer learning features. So very much about activating features where learners can engage with one another. And we always say, let the best teach the rest. And many organizations, you would know that you have very skilled people that can educate their peers, and giving them the facilities to do that is very powerful, as Lisa will talk about in a second. So that's just for anyone that's new, very quick rundown of what the platform is all about. So let's talk about today's topic. So what we did to really construct the agenda for today was to really reflect on the questions that we hear on a day-to-day basis coming from the solutions team. And then in conversation with Lisa, we then put together the agenda. So here are a few questions that are super common, things that I always hear. So what role should microlearning play? Obviously, many organizations are coming from a more traditional standpoint where you might just have existing face-to-face solutions and you've never used e-learning or microlearning before. So hopefully with Lisa's help, we're going to answer this one. Number 2 there, how does it enhance the learning outcome? Obviously super important to go from a level that you're at the moment and really take your learning experience to the next level. And then thirdly there, how do you combine it with other tools? So is it just a standalone, or does it replace what you do existing? So Lisa will really articulate these things for us. So I'll leave it there and hand the screen over, and we can get into it.
Okay, thank you very much.
One moment.
For that.
I will stop the share and you should be able to take over now. Okay, right. I can see your screen.
Okay, how's that? Can you see that screen? Big and big and
perfect.
Ready to go. All right, well, thank you so much for that, Luke. That was a great introduction. So how I've kind of structured today for the next kind of half an hour or so is to look at teaching fish to climb trees, and I will explain that to you. It will become evident in a minute. The move to digital learning, and then the process that I follow in creating a blended learning approach. So those are kind of the 3 chunks, if you will, of what we're going to chat through today. So the first piece is teaching fish to climb trees. And that's a short video that I've edited down. I'm going to share with you. My daughter at the time was 12 when she sent me the link to this, and probably says something about my daughter in terms of her views on how to study. But I'm going to ask you to just take a minute and listen to this, and hopefully this will play for you.
Albert Einstein once said, everybody's a genius. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, today on trial we have modern day schooling. Exhibit A. Here's a modern day phone. Recognize it? Here's a phone from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Stay with me. Here's a car from today. And here's a car from 150 years ago. Big difference, right? Well, get this. Here's a classroom of today. And here's a class we used 150 years ago. Now, ain't that a shame? In literally more than a century, nothing has changed. I get it. Back then, times were different. We all have a past. I myself am no Gandhi. But today, we don't need to make robot zombies. The world has progressed. And now we need people who think creatively, innovatively, critically, independently, with the ability to connect. See, every scientist will tell you that no two brains are the same. And every parent with 2 or more children will confirm that claim. So please explain why you treat students like cookie cutter frames or snapback hats, giving them this one-size-fits-all crap. Sorry, Your Honor. And if we can customize healthcare, cars, and Facebook pages, then it is our duty to do the same for education, to upgrade and change in schools like Montessori, programs like Khan Academy. There is no single solution.
Right. So hopefully that's kind of got your head into a bit. I always find it very challenging. And whilst we're not talking about children or students here, we are talking about ways of learning. And the challenge back to us as trainers and learning and development teams is to really look to think about how we're educating and think about how we're training and bringing a classroom to life, whether that's virtual or real. And so what I get out of that is there's no one way to get to where you're going. And for me, from a training point of view, given different learning types and behaviors and the content that we're dealing with and the audiences that you're dealing with, there's no one way to train. And I think that it's all about finding the best way and the optimal way to learn. So that's the premise of fish climbing trees. And if I think back to 20 odd years ago when I started training, whilst that's not a picture of me, it's probably indicative of the box that I used to carry around of acetate slides to put on the overhead projector. That was what it was like. And yet here I find myself 25 odd years later doing conferences like this, doing training programs like this over a video. Technology has taken us to a hugely different place. But the need to train, to engage, to connect, to embed what you're training, that remains the same. So it's about finding the best ways that we can do that for our learners. So traditionally, if you're anything like me, historically, it's a classroom training environment that we go to. We have a 1, 2, 3, 4-day program, whether those are consecutive or spread out. We have a series of pre-work, potentially breakouts, exercises. It might be case study based. You could bring in guest speakers, you do energizers, and you're kind of like a 9 to 4 sort of day. So that's sort of the world that I think most of us come from. And the benefits of that are the ability to have a one-on-one environment, to build a relationship with the people that you're training. You can adapt your style quite easily because you can see people and you can read their body language. People can't turn a video off. There's additional content that you can bring in. You can shift the agenda around if you want to. So for me, I love a classroom. I love training. I love being with people. But it's not the only solution, and it's not even always the best solution. And right now, it's not even a possible solution, even with people going back to work, certainly in Australia, we are not having people or clients, sort of providers are not going into offices. We're not holding workshops and live sort of sessions like that. So virtual has really become a necessity. And we saw virtual kind of coming into our world over the years. We usually support a classroom training environment with different streams. It's not the only way, and it's certainly not going to allow you to get the stickiness or the embedding. And these are all different things that have evolved and come to sort of the fore and then fallen away over the years. And many of you may well have got involved in some of these. So whether it's about basing an academy on, the academy became a very big thing about 10 years ago, the sales way, coaching, peer reviews, having subject matter experts or champions within a business, competency framework, critical part of training. And then we started to get things like WebEx, which, 15 years ago, this was, wow, this was amazing. We were all sort of amazed at this technology, and e-learning, and then microlearning, all of the, just the evolution of what we've been able to do. So the first time that I really pulled this together and ed and microlearning became a part of my agenda was with a global client where they were creating a more individual type of program. And so I thought I'd just quickly share this with you because I think it shows you how microlearning came into what was a very traditional classroom learning approach for this business. And it also shows you the evolution of ed that I've been able to see from then sort of 6 years ago or so to where it is now. So briefly, this was a career path program. It was an academy for a sales group where we started in this space down here where we had formal training, we had team-based assessments, and what they brought into it was a much more personalized learning environment. And so in order for us to do that personalized learning environment, we created 5 different streams. Classroom, we all get that. That was about building the core capabilities of the team. We had online e-learning, which was very exciting and new at the time, where individuals could work through a program at their own pace. And then we had microlearning, which was a great tool that we were using primarily at that point to reinforce the key messages in those bite-sized chunks to really make sure that we landed the key principles that you can be overwhelmed with sometimes in a classroom environment. Embedding, so other ways, putting people onto special projects, seconding them to different parts of the business, setting up mentoring programs, so things that are more specific and unique to the individual. The last element of that, which I believe remains really critical, is that everyday coaching environment. So really important that managers today continue to coach and embed on a day-to-day basis. And our view was that this is a holistic program is what would create that stickiness that we were looking for. And so when we moved into looking what that looked like, what we had to do is take each of those kind of 5 areas and say, well, what do they do? What role do they play in this overall environment? What do they do? Why do we need it? And when will it happen? So not looking at one piece of learning, but looking at the whole program is really what makes the difference. And for me, what brings a blended roadmap to life. If I look specifically at ed, so those of you who have worked with ed will be familiar with this. Those where it's a bit new, it'll give you an insight. So ed runs on a, sorry, I'm one slide ahead of myself. So we mapped this out for this Retail Cheese Academy, whether it was classroom around establishing a baseline, complementary to follow up, the role of microlearning to embed, and then everyday coaching to transition the knowledge into action. Individual support was not relevant for this particular area, so we got rid of that. So you don't have to do everything, yeah? Make sense? Unless I hear otherwise, I'm going to keep on going. So as I was saying, when you're mapping ed, the way that I approached is to look at the different courses. So we took the PowerPoint training program and I broke that down into a series of courses. Within each course, you have lessons. So these are the lessons. These are the single-minded, less than 5-minute sort of boom, really Zoom sessions. And so we mapped that out. And what we had in between those sessions were testing weeks, fun fact weeks. So we just broke it up a bit. And so all up, it's about a 12-week program, but it's that consistent reminder of how we do it. And this was really important for us to have the learners to be able to access this as and when they needed to. And that's another fantastic advantage and opportunity of microlearning. So we mapped out the lesson. And what we did, as I said, was we translated the PowerPoint slides that they were seeing in a classroom into what it looked like on ed. We also had the opportunity in the briefcase option where we could put in PDFs. This was an example of a checklist where the learners were encouraged to print that out and have it up so that they would be constantly reminded. So you have the opportunity of bringing in different levers to remind the learners. And so if you haven't downloaded Ed, if you haven't had a play on it yet, I really encourage you to, because you'll see how this all comes to life. So you can go in and have a look at that at any time, lots of lessons. So I really encourage you to do that. And that was my kind of first Ed sort of and micro learning experience, where we really used it as a complementary, and it was an essential part of that rollout for that particular client. We had great success with that, real step change in the way that in a retail environment, the shopper experience changed. So it was great success for us. Hopefully you're all on board and that makes sense. I can talk a little quickly, so if you need me to slow down or ask any questions, I'll let Luke jump in at any time.
Coming through great, Lisa.
Okay, good. All right, well, I'll keep on going then. So the move to digital learning, for some people, you might have been doing this for a long time. Me, in and out a little bit. And I guess really what's changed everything for us is what I call is he whose name must not be mentioned. Harry Potter lives on in our house. The training landscape, as much as everything else, changed dramatically, you know, in March this year. And depending on how your countries have managed or adjusted to COVID, and specifically, I know the Australian environment, this is very much where we find ourselves in lockdown, people working from home. And suddenly we weren't able to have all of those training scenarios. And so something like all the digital solutions became really important. Now, what also happened is we've entered into a bit of Zoom fatigue. Can't knock it, because it is what has kept us connected. It's what allows me to talk to you guys around the world and share thoughts and ideas, and sort of whether that's through work or with family. But it absolutely has created this kind of drain where a lot of people are on Zoom calls or Teamer or Google Meets, whatever it is, all the time. And we do know that your brains have to work harder when you're in a conference like this, in this environment. We're easily distracted, tech will fail us. And just to kind of, if you've had one of these moments of the kids walking in or the dogs barking, as may well still happen today, I always like to share this. It's a great example of what's happened in our world.
And what will it mean for the wider region? I think one of your children has just walked in. I mean, shifting sands in the region. Do you think relations with the North may change? I would be surprised if they do.
I love this video. It's I've over the last few months, we've all had these sorts of moments for sure.
I know. Just on the BBC News, you know, so don't worry, we've all seen it. But I think it's a great example for me. And I think what's happened really is that L&D teams, trainers, facilitators, so if I really talk specifically about this in a learning environment, we've had to pivot, and it's an overused word, I know, but we've had to start to change the way we do things. And there have been some amazing apps. Mural is a great favorite of mine, to be able to facilitate and run a workshop with Post-its and get everybody involved. Kahoot, energizers, pop quizzes, you know, there are so many ways in which we're having to engage and change the way we do things, because really the show must go on. We have to keep skilling, we have to keep training, we can't just let these things stop. And so what's happened is we've all transitioned to this digital world almost overnight. And all of these elements that I've got up on the screen now are things that have been available, but perhaps we haven't used them as much because our default has often been to that classroom. And in fact, our default went to a virtual classroom first before we started looking at all of these other environments. And I speak for myself and people I've chatted to, you may well have a different experience and might have taken another route. But what we've seen happen is the virtual world has become really important for us to continue to communicate and to continue to upskill. What we've also seen is a lot of learning management systems, LMS, come out of the woodwork that have got some great capacity and capability, some at great cost, some very easy to understand, some not. So as a person, you're trying to get your head around all of these things and how you can make it work. And so as I was starting to roll out and put together a couple of programs and training programs for clients that said, we still need to keep doing this, what are we going to do? I had to investigate a lot of the other options versus a classroom environment, which is what we had planned. So I started to zoom in, I guess, if you will, on two areas for me. That was the virtual classroom and then microlearning. And microlearning specifically for me is Ed, in terms of everything that the platform offers you. So I wanted to, again, just take a minute to look at these two environments and see where that left me. So I had to look at virtual classroom. So just, again, getting language right. For me, a virtual classroom is a training classroom. It's led by a trainer or facilitator, attended by the learners, and it's a fixed time or date. This is not a recorded session to be listened to later. People come in on it. We do breakouts, we do workshops. We literally run a training session as if we were in the same room together. So that's what I mean by virtual classroom. So for me, lots of pluses, which I'm sure you'll all be familiar with. People know it. It's comfortable. They get it. There's an interaction. You get a group of people learning together, which sometimes is really important if you're trying to raise the floor or get some conversations around strategy or plans or ways to do things differently. They can ask questions because I'm right here. Get immediate support. I can go off in a different direction, which I am prone to do, and discuss or clarify. So all the pluses are there, but it became very hard to try and coordinate diaries because people had all of these meetings still planned, but it seemed to be just a really different diary scenario. You couldn't flex the time. This particular client was looking at New Zealand and Australia. So we really needed to try and land that. Another client that I was working with at the time was looking at an ASPAC program, so across Asia as well as Australia and New Zealand. You got time zones, languages, all sorts of complexity that comes into it. And then this kind of, is that another video? They're going to go from one video meeting to another video meeting to another. So it's not the principle of a video conference, it's the fact that you're doing them back to back that was becoming a challenge. And as I said, hard to manage across markets. So I plotted it out. And I said, right, if I've got to do a program and break it down into 2-hour chunks, I don't think that you can have people sitting for any longer than that without them just losing focus. So I plotted it out. This was my main session, and these were the contents, the topics I would cover. And so I went and I plotted it out. It's about an 8-week program. I'll spare you the repeat, but pretty much looked like this. I had some pre-work. I put in some workshop or homework afterwards, but by and large, it kind of in full mapped out to be about 22.5 hours learning over an 8-week period. And that was engaging, and we had people there. So I thought, okay, that's great. But I've still got these things around timing. How the hell am I going to get all of these people into this number of workshops for this period of time? And so that really became a challenge. So I thought, right, let me go to my friend Ed and look at my microlearning plan. So microlearning, again, short, sharp, focused lessons, accessed by the learner on their phone, their desktop, or their iPad, if you're my husband, at a time that suits them. So you can run that way. Better engagement. So all the things that Luke took you through earlier. Authoring as for the, for a client or for a trainer, if you're doing and developing the authoring, really easy to develop. I hate using that word unprecedented because we have heard it a lot in 2020, but it is unprecedented agility. Ongoing learning culture, analytics, anyone in the business can do the lesson, not just the people attending. So lots and lots of pros with microlearning. Couple of sort of concerns, I guess, that would come up, because I do think we've got to bear those in mind. It not like a learner could ask a question then and there was kind of my thinking. You have to have the discipline. And yes, you've got gamification to try and overcome that. You've got notifications. There are a lot of things you can do, but if you're anything like me, you can turn off notifications, and you really have to rely on the discipline of the team to do it. And again, for somebody who likes classroom and talking and context and storytelling, is it too focused? But that's, trying to balance out the pros and cons of the various options. So I rolled out and did exactly the same thing, what my learning roadmap would look like. And I was like, bloody hell, that looks pretty similar. The biggest difference was the time. So I kind of was down to a quarter of the time. But I was like, I don't know whether this is actually going to be 100% the solution I want. And I realized that I didn't have to compromise. Why was I trying to do one or the other? And I took myself back to my blended learning kind of principles. And I realized that I could do all of this together. So the learning program that I ended up putting together looked a little bit more like this for week 1. Whilst it was bedded in the microlearning and Ed, what I built in that I discovered I could do on the EdApp was actually create all of these moments of engagement. So I could build in chats, peer reviews, Q&As with myself. I did a wrap-up lesson, and I decided that I would be on a phone for half an hour at the end of every week, so that if people wanted to come in and ask questions, they could. So I was able to have that one-on-one scenario. I then sort of started to get a little bit crazy, and I found out that I could set up a Zoom call or a Teams call in the EdApp itself. So the learner could still be on their phone using their application, and they would just go in and connect straight through. So suddenly it was all really the same learning solution, just applying different approaches within that. So I integrated 1-hour workshops. I did pre-work. At the end of the session, brought people in. There was a new area around insights that was quite different for the team. So I thought I actually kick that off with a live classroom that I'm going to run in the EdApp, and then they'll get the follow-up and the sequential programs. So I guess where I ended up, I thought very cleverly, was really being able to leverage microlearning as well as the other aspects of learning, like Q&As, like chats, like mentoring, like coaching, virtual classrooms. I could do all of that, and I discovered that I could do that on Ed. And this whole program was about 12 hours, so I'm still at half the time, but I've got the beauty of the microlearning and that real-time engagement, because Ed had become not just a micro-learning app, but actually an integrated platform, which initially in my understanding and how I worked with it, it had not been. So it had all of these different components as a learner app, as the administration and the analytics, the branding. I could multimedia hosting, so you had video embedding, course translations, which for my one client was invaluable as we trained through Asia, where English is definitely not the first language for a learner, and editable course content. So suddenly I could do all of this using Ed. So if you think back to that sort of slide that I showed you before, I could do all of it. So all of these areas, I could host a virtual meeting within Ed. I could set up live feeds and discussions with the learners. I had the briefcase where I could store various components that I wanted them to be able to access and go back to. So whilst it's not a complete online library, it allowed me to store things. And obviously I had the template-driven lessons themselves with microlearning. And then I could also do things like set assignments. So I can, in the platform, there's a place in the lesson where I'm setting it up. I can go and I can set an assignment, and the learner submits that back to me, and we can have a conversation about what that is. Brain Boost is great because it works on a personal algorithm. So it's not a generic sort of quiz. It actually tailors to the needs of the learner, the analytics and the reports. So it became this very tailored environment that I sort of felt like potentially when I'd used it, when I was looking at my options, that I might lose in a virtual world. And in fact, probably created one that was a little bit more powerful. So
I think I can also help out here, Lisa.
Yeah,
I think those of you that have seen a lot of the webinars this year would have seen a lot of these features being newly introduced this year. And I think that's one thing to stress, that EdApp is a very modern solution. We haven't been around forever. So the types of features that Lisa, you were describing are now possible within the platform, have been newly developed. And really with that comes the promise that the team are very busy in the background building more potential, more ability for organizations to deliver very, very great blended learning solution. So I think that, the sky's the limit in terms of how our development team are thinking.
Oh, absolutely. And if I think about some of the things that I see, as I said, when the first example I showed you was 5 or 6 years ago, and it was very much just, and I can remember even saying to Darren, could I do this and could we do that? And he said, oh, we want to, but we're not doing that yet. And now sort of when I'm re-engaging and I'm looking at some of the new features, I'm blown away with all the things that I'd wanted to do that are there, and things that I hadn't even thought you could do. And I think that's the power of it, and the fact that there is this constant innovation, and listening to what people are looking for, and sort of being predictive in how you can build up that. So I think, real kudos to the team who've done that and created this environment that we can use.
Actually, so I have a question here, if I can just interrupt the flow a little bit. If we can just jump back to the previous slide. I have a great question here from Chris, who's asking.
This one?
Just the one before that. Yep. Here we go. Perfect. So Chris has asked, can microlessons be used or referenced during the live sessions? So here you're kind of mapping out a structure where we've got a combination of microlearning in and around virtual conferences and other features. But have you seen success in actually engaging learners to actually be on their mobile phones completing content during a virtual face-to-face?
Oh, it's a good thought, Chris. I haven't actually done that. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't do that, particularly if you think about people are probably getting used to being able to use their phone, whether it might be on a Kahoot quiz or something during a class. So they're definitely using that. So I think you could do that. I haven't done it. You could do it by setting it up on your screen. So again, remember, you can use Ed on a desktop. So as the trainer, you could be able to show and run things on the desktop and get the learners to do that themselves. So I think you could do it. I haven't done it, but I think it would work for sure. I don't know if you've got another thought on that, Luke, from a technical point of view, but I don't see why that wouldn't work.
Yeah, no, I think that, you know, sometimes when you're holding these virtual sessions, people are on their mobile phones doing other things, accessing their emails.
No,
So maybe getting
they're
them
hanging on my every word.
No, I think, you know, leveraging the platform where suitable, you know, where the subject matter demands it, can be quite powerful. There are certain features in the platform that allow you to ask survey questions. So
yeah, I was going to say, I think that probably is, you know, because that would keep you in the platform without going out, right? So you could set up a lesson that was a specific quiz, or you could set up a lesson that was used to break things up as a bit of an energizer either. So you could actually create lessons for that specific purpose of integration.
Yep, exactly.
100%.
Okay.
Any other questions? I've got one more slide to really share with you guys how I approached setting this up, for example, and then if you've got any questions. So shall I move forward?
Let's keep going, yeah.
Okay, thank you for that question. Okay, so back. Boom, 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 boom. Gotta love a build. So in terms of creating the roadmap, so this is sort of the process that I've always followed. I just find myself sometimes overwhelmed with the choice that I have. And so it does help me kind of fit in first. And I guess it's like anything we do, you've got to I really encourage you not to leap to the solution first, but to always start and ask the questions of what are you trying to do and why, and then start to identify the best way to do it. So the starting point is always your target learner, whether that's their role, their experience, their existing knowledge, the demographics, cultural, society influences, whatever those might be. How many learners do you have? Again, it doesn't make a massive difference with some platforms, but with others, if you've got a lot of people, it might be quite hard to do. Are you looking at multiple regions, multiple states, for example, languages, and the budget? Big important thing. You got to love it. Can you put together this? No, I don't have a budget. Oh, okay. So budget is important, but probably the two most important components and timing. The two most important things for me are the desired behavior change. So what do you want the learner to think, feel, and do as a result of this learning initiative? And what are the competencies that need to be acquired, or what is the learning outcome? So once you have that, you can then have a look and say, well, based on all of these scenarios, and I'm sure that there are more available, right through from an actual classroom, which one day I do hope we can do again, to virtual, to e-learning, webinars, microlearning, podcasts, guest speakers, Q&As. What do I need? And so when you map out the needs of the learner, the organization, the objectives of the training, you'll start to lose some of these. Some of these won't be as relevant anymore. And so you'll drop them out. And it may be budget dependent. It might be that some of these scenarios are a lot easier to do depending on the budget that you have. And then you can start to say, so how do I deliver this? What are the platforms? What are the apps? What are the tools? Do I need different trainers? Who will develop the content? How will I do that? And so you will be able to map out what that blended learning solution is. And, if you're looking at a scenario of this, where you've got Q&As, coaching, mentoring, peer reviews, micro-learning, webinars, virtual classrooms, you can actually do all of this on EdApp. There are other learning management services providers that will do that, LMS systems, but they won't deliver this here, and they won't deliver this, to my knowledge and my experience, as seamlessly for the learner. Very easy for the learner, to be able to go to one place on their phone, and they've got all of that there. And so that becomes quite powerful. So that's my kind of how I would set it up and how I would look at it and balance it out. And I will generally go to a client with a much more holistic plan and then pare back, rather than go with something sort of shorter. For me, the final piece though to remember is that you've got to make sure that whatever you're doing, the trainer or the facilitator or the person who's communicating and connecting is connecting and engaging with the learners, that we're creating an active learning space where they're not looking at their phones doing something else, or they're turning off their video conference because they're going out to feed the cat. Like, you need to keep them with you in the room virtually. And that's how you will embed the learning, and you will keep them engaged, because I've had all of those experiences myself, and I think I've probably seen all of those in my my learning sort of environments over the years. So really important that as trainers and learners and L&D teams, we don't abdicate just because we've got an awesome system. We have to make sure that we connect and engage. And again, that's something that the micro-learning does in spades, with a lot of the components of gamification, etc. As well as just that quick, sharp, easy to learn. You certainly don't get any of that happening in that environment. So that kind of, I guess, wraps up the theory part of it, if you will, and the approach that I take. I did want to finish and then maybe take some questions with the kind of wrap on teaching fish to climb trees that sort of bookends everything for me. So I'll play this out for you and then see if you've got any questions.
So let's attend to their dreams, and there's no telling what we can achieve. This is a world in which I believe, a world where fish are no longer forced to climb trees. I'll rest my case.
So yeah, I just encourage you to look for those other ways of learning and stretch yourself and stretch your team. So that's it. That's me.
Thanks for that, Lisa. That was really great. For anyone that's eager to hear a little bit more about what Lisa does, and reach out if you have a program where you need some consulting assistance. Her details are up on screen. I might just take over the screen and
please do. I'll stop sharing. There we go. Over to you.
Okay, fantastic. That was really great. That was obviously hearing specific anecdotal feedback about how to combine EdApp with other solutions and other training mediums I think is really powerful. Often, many of you that have tuned into these webinars in the past are very much focused on the innovation and really talking about our platform specifically, but it's great to hear about how it can be woven in with other forms of training as well. The screen that I'm on right now, if you guys can see, it's anyone that's new to the platform can actually log in and create a free trial account and have a play around with the system yourself. And that leads me to one of the questions from Deborah, just asking whether the platform is either an authoring tool or it's an LMS. And the answer is that it's both. It's both an authoring suite and a delivery medium as well. And the second question from Chris, thanks for that, Chris, just asking about how easy it is to create material in EdApp. And traditionally, Chris mentioned that he's used a lot of PowerPoint in the past. I know I could sing the praises of our authoring tool all day, but Lisa, I'd love to hear your feedback on how you think our authoring tool stacks up versus others out there.
Yeah, I think, Chris, like you, I'm a PowerPoint person. That probably tell from my age that that's kind of where I've come from. In fact, I can go back to freehand or something like that many years ago. Look, it's a really easy authoring tool. There's actually an option of being able to take your PowerPoints and transpose it straight into lessons. I find that you've got a series of templates that help you do things in a different way. Each slide is set up. And in fact, I can even, if you want to, Luke, I can jump over and quickly do a show something on my screen. So I think I'll just pull it up while we're chatting. So I think you can do it very easily. I find for me, because I am used to PowerPoint, and it's probably not the right way of doing it, but just practically sometimes what I will do is I will kind of set it out in kind of PowerPoint, sort of set it out in sort of mini slides. And that's how I kind of get my sense of the flow of the lesson and how I want it to start and finish. And then I can take that from PowerPoint and take that across into the app. So it's very easy. And in fact, Luke, you can just sort of, if you want to sort of build on that, and I'll just quickly pull something up and I'll show you just how easy it is actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, our aim with the authoring tool is really to allow anyone, whether you're an L&D team of 30 or whether you're just a single person that's responsible for the training of your organization, to be able to jump in and build really engaging training content. So with that in mind, the authoring tool does have some similarities to building content in PowerPoint. The whole vision is that you can just upload imagery and text and rich media with a click of the mouse and drag it in. And then from there, you've got micro-learning in, almost ready to deploy kind of format. So that's really part of the vision for what's shaping the way that we build the tool. And Lisa, you mentioned the upload to PowerPoint.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
So basically, literally, it's as easy as this. Here's a program that I'm developing at the moment. You go into a course. These are the different lessons. So I'll just go into this. I'll go in and edit my content here. And it's so, obviously, this is my system being a bit slow. So you can see here, these are each of your slides that you have. So you input your content here. So I might go in and say, I want to add a new slide. So that would be a new screen that you would see. And look at this. You've literally got all of these templates of how you can put your content in. So if you're a bit of a PowerPoint person, you might quite like the list slide. And you can literally go in and say, oh, this is all about learning the digital way. And I'm going to put in some points. So literally, it's as easy as that. I first sort of do scope my full lesson, and then you can go in and look at the different lesson ideas. And it's so easy because it's completely template driven. And as I said up here, you can go in and import PowerPoint presentations, which if that's the way you want to go. So it's as easy as that. And it's so I hope that answers your question, Chris.
Yeah,
pretty good.
I think that's a great summary of how it comes together. And again, if there's anyone that hasn't already got an account, jump in and create one and have a look for yourself. I might just take over again, and we'll wrap things up again here. We're coming up on our time. Yeah, again, thank you so much for joining, Lisa. If anyone wants to reach out to Lisa and inquire as to Wheelhouse's services, make sure that you shoot an email across or hit the website.
I'm on LinkedIn. Come and find me there. Happy to have a chat and see what we can do. And likewise, as I said earlier, if you haven't gone on and had a play on the app, that is the best way to see how it brings it to life. You really do have to try it, and I think you'll be sold.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for the session, and I'll see you soon on the Australian leg of this webinar, Lisa.